Howdy folks, and welcome to the Minecraft Flight Simulator mod. This mod aims to do something that's long sought after in Minecraft, implement realistic flight. It does this using real-world aircraft properties, some semi-decent looking models, and a buttload of physics. Let me show you around. When you step into the aircraft cockpit, you'll notice some things that aren't present in mods like Flans. Realistic aircraft indicators. Now there's quite a few of them here, so I'll go over them each in a little detail. The one on the farthest left is your flap indicator. That simply shows what position your flaps are in. The next one is your fuel indicator, which shouldn't need any explanation, though the one after that seems a little bit different than regular aircraft indicators. It's the airspeed indicator. This one has been Minecraftified to read in blocks per second, instead of the usual miles per hour or knots. The middle indicator is your heading indicator, which has also been Minecraftified to deal with Minecraft's slightly quirky coordinate system, where south is actually in the positive direction in the z-axis. The indicator over in the middle right is the altitude indicator, which has been increased in accuracy to allow better reading of your Y position. The final dial is your engine tachometer, which obviously reads 0 now because the engine isn't running. All the way over on the right side, you have a couple little things that are just little decorations. The first one just is the throttle knob. It shows the position of your throttle. The second one is the parking brake lever. It just shows you if your parking brakes are engaged or not. When you pull it out, the parking brakes are engaged. When it's in, the parking brakes are disengaged. Helpful if you wonder why your plane's standing still when you're trying to take off. Now that you've seen the interior of the plane, let's see it in action. First off, you're going to have to start the plane. Now, you could start it using the internal starter by pressing the M key, but I like to start planes the old-fashioned way. There we are. Now that the motor's running, we can get in there and actually drive the thing. So first off, you need to release the parking brake. And second, give it a little bit more throttle. Now, in external view here, you won't have those indicators in your way. It makes it easier for looking around. You do have to remember to watch your altitude readings. Note how the camera follows the plane around as it goes around corners. I find this especially useful for taxiing and when you're flying in general. If you do want to disable this feature, you can just press the right control key. You can also zoom in and out, the page up and page down key. Let's get to the end of this taxiway. You'll also notice that the wheels and propellers spin pretty realistically. Little feature, I like to say, little detail, you know? Now, since the plane has a parking brake, it obviously must have regular brakes. It makes it easy to stop and not overrun things. Time to take off. Make sure we can get the throttle up to speed. Plenty of fuel. Add 10 degrees of flaps. Away we go. Note how the engine RPM increases slightly as you speed up. This is one of the functions of propellers, that there's a little bit of friction and drag on them running at a slow speed at a high RPM. Similarly, if you speed up, the propeller will also spin faster, because you're pushing through the air faster than it wants to go. Although I wouldn't recommend going into the red zone of that airspeed indicator. It can be a dangerous place. also note that the plane turns by rolling and banking, much like realistic planes in the real world. If you want to turn sharper, you can bank a little bit more and use the rudder. The goal here is to try and keep the rear of the plane in line with the smoke from the engine. If you find it's not aligning quite right, you'll find that the plane slips a little bit in the turn and doesn't quite turn as sharp. You have to be careful not to turn too sharp, in which case you'll probably fall out of the sky, which is not a good thing if you're blowing up. Wouldn't recommend that. When you're flying, you'll also note that the camera rolls with you. Another little feature. Again, if you don't like it, just use the control key and you won't turn the plane. That airport was due east, so you can use the heading indicator to set yourself east. Finally, when landing, you're going to probably want to use extensive use of your flaps. This is the case where you pretty much put them all the way down. It slows you down, which means that you can land on a shorter runway. Assuming, of course, you aren't like me and try and take the runway too high up to begin with. And there you have it. Not a bad flying this thing. There's a couple more things I want to show you right now. First off is what happens if you actually crash the plane. It's not something I'd recommend, but just in case you hit something too hard, you'll notice that basically everything kind of falls off your plane. This is because each part of the plane, wheels, propellers, engines, and everything, is each its own separate entity. This allows you to actually land roughly without killing yourself. Do note that if you land super roughly and run into things, you'll end up pretty much blowing yourself up. The size of the explosion, of course, is dependent on how much fuel you have in the plane. So if you plan on turning yourself into a little miniature bomb, I would not put much plane inside your fuel. Now, what happens if you want to repair your plane? Say you have a rough landing and you take out a couple of your wheels. Well, it's pretty simple, really. Just put new wheels on the plane. So if I go over here and get myself a couple of small wheels, which fits the Cessna, and a wooden propeller. I have all of my engine already, so I don't need it. You can just shift-click the center of the plane. It opens up the plane inventory, where you can see your engines, your seats, and everything else. As you can see, there's clearly no propeller in this slot, which means we have to put the propeller there. It's also missing all three of its wheels, because, of course, we landed roughly and they broke off. This is also the same place where you put fuel, and place where you get buckets out. Well, apparently I shouldn't have put wheels on with the plane stuck in a tree. Note to self, not doing that anytime soon. As you saw, plane crafting is remarkably easy. If you want to craft a plane, all you have to do is either craft one with a crafting recipe, or you can pull one straight out of the creative inventory. Now, the nice thing and interesting thing about these planes is the wood takes the color of the wood you craft it with. If I crafted a plane with dark oak wood planks, it would take the color of dark oak. Similarly, the seats take the crafting colors of the wool you craft them with and the wood you craft them with, which is why you have so many different colors. So let's say I want one of these, and I can take maybe one of those. And propellers as well have different crafting recipes. Obsidian propellers are much stronger than wooden propellers, and iron propellers are in the mid-range. So I can take one of those. You can also upgrade your engine. Note that the ones with higher RPMs can make the plane go faster, but they have a higher fuel consumption to match. You'll want to balance this carefully. So you simply go into the planes thing, add your wheels, engine, 2 seats, and apparently I'm missing a wheel, so it will spawn without a wheel, of course. Let me get one more wheel. There we are. And put in the wheel. There we are. Now, about the seats in the plane. The front seat is what controls the plane, while the rear seat is simply for passengers. They can't really do anything except sit along for the ride. Although if you, say, decide to bail out, they can always hop forward and take control. Also note, attempting to fly a plane without any fuel in it is pretty much futile unless you just want to pull it into a garage. One final note on crafting airplanes is that you can actually control the properties of engines and propellers. Note how this engine has a max RPM of 3,400, much higher than anything you'll find in the crafting grid. Similarly, you can make 3-bladed propellers, 4-bladed propellers, or even giant 8-bladed propellers. All of this can be done by using the give command for spawning items, as I haven't quite got the propeller crafting process figured out yet. But if you want, you can give your little plane a 3-bladed propeller as a other typical Cessna, or give it a monstrosity 8-bladed propeller. Not that that'll do you anything in terms of performance, but it does kind of look cool, I suppose. Well, folks, might as well go out with a bang. This is why you don't fly fast. And this is Don Bruce, signing off.